All right.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for that warm welcome. And I'm really excited to be here today. This is the first time I am speaking here at the PeopleFirst Global Summit. So I'm very happy to be part of this. I think it's an amazing initiative. And today I will definitely be sharing real time challenges that we are facing in the workplace. But first and foremost, I'd like to introduce myself. As Matt said, my name is Silvia Mwangi, and I am a leadership and career development coach. And I spend most of my days supporting organizations and supporting professionals across the globe to find paths where they can find clarity, grow with clarity. And I like to say that the aim for me is to package professionals for success as well as organizations. Today, I speak to you about something that's really deeply personal to me, but I also think that this is universally experienced across the globe. And this is the human reset, and pretty much speaking about when life happens at work, how then, as organizations, can we rethink the way we support people? So, as I continue with my presentation today, I'd like to give you a short story. I'm a storyteller, so I like to tell stories. And I believe the very first time I was faced with a challenge of choosing between work and life was back in 2011 when I lost my mom. And that's the very first time I realized that I really had to choose whether I wanted to continue to be in employment or to take care of my mental health. My mother was my rock. And when I lost her, I felt confused. I remember re entering or going back to work after 1 week of just, once we laid her to rest, I had to go back to work after 1 week. And for me, that was really a sad time, a confusing time. I felt lost. I wondered, where was I supposed to start? And was I supposed to go on with life as usual, and was business as usual? And back then, there wasn't as much support when it came to going into therapy sessions. I also come from Africa. As Matt mentioned, I was born and raised in Kenya. I am currently living in Canada right now. But when that happened, I obviously did not walk into a therapy room as the first thing. So one of the things that I faced as a challenge was my mental health was definitely affected. And I really struggled. I did sink. As I mentioned, I felt lost and confused, and I didn't know where to start, and I had to leave work. So I resigned from my job, which I had had for 5 years, and that was my very first job. And in that moment, I did not leave because I wasn't capable. I did not leave because I wasn't as ambitious. I left because the way the system was designed was not as friendly or as welcoming for me as someone who had just lost a loved one and was looking to find themselves again in the workplace as they continue to find themselves in life. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are two instances. So, that was the very first instance. And the second time I was faced with choosing between work and life was when I became a mom. A good moment, because when you become a mother, you're very anticipatory of what is ahead of you. So when I became a mom, I realized that I was going to work. I would leave my son asleep and I would come back when my son was asleep. And 1 year into my career, 1 year back then into that job, I realized I could not do this anymore. And so I started to find ways in which I could free myself. I started to look for spaces that would allow me to be both a mom and a wife, and to still chase my career. Born and raised in Kenya, I grew up seeing both my parents work, but my dad worked and was employed, and my mom was an entrepreneur. And I watched them be there for us. I watched them really be present. And so for me to not experience it when I got into the workplace was I was a bit taken aback, because that's not what I expected. And so I was in this chase for a very long time, looking for spaces that would accommodate me. I was looking for spaces that would allow me to do everything, to still do my career and still be a mom and a wife and be there for my family. And it did take a very long time for me to land an opportunity that allows me to actually do that. I eventually landed a role in a training and coaching company, or rather HR firm that is in Kenya. And that is where I found my love for coaching. And I'm the founder and CEO of Kuza Services Limited, an organization that is a coaching and training center. And what we do is we support organizations and we support professionals through coaching and through training to make sure that they are focused in terms of finding themselves as individuals, but also as organizations. How can they support the people that are working for them? So I found my love for coaching. I love coaching. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And so from a coaching lens, and when people walk into my coaching room, what do they see and what do I see? And what I see every day is brilliant professionals. If I'm being honest, I see professionals who are frustrated and burnt out. I see professionals who walk in and say, Sylvia, I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. I see professionals who have found themselves in workplaces that have stopped loving them back. And so they don't find value in the work that they are doing. I see professionals every day who are actually questioning if success is even worth it, or if they should go on in chasing this or going up that career ladder. They wonder, okay, I really wanted to be director, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I see professionals who find that the system is rewarding visibility over value. And so they come into work and they pour in so many hours, but the outcome is not necessarily what they hope to see. And so organizations then are losing their best people, not because they're not capable, but because they're exhausted. And so the real question, and what we are posing today, what the question is how can we help people do their best sustainably and in a humane way and be able to experience purpose at the same time? If I was to look at what we've seen in terms of the system, we have different stories. And as I said, every day employees from different organizations will walk into my coaching room. And over the years, I've met very many people, women, I've met single fathers, I've met caregivers who really have faced this impossible choice of having to choose between work and life. And I read a story recently on LinkedIn, which actually broke my heart, if I may say, because it was of this young lady, and she had said that she's coming back, that she's transitioning to another job. And she was saying, I have officially resigned from my caregiving role and I'm transitioning into another job, into X job. And I read that article with anticipation because I actually thought she was a caregiver, probably employed by a home or working for an organization. But no, she was taking care of her ailing mother. And she had done that for 3 years. And now the mother had passed on and she needed to transition into work and find herself again in the workplace. And I read that article, and why I say it broke my heart is because when I continued to read, I did see that she left work to take care of her ailing mother because the system did not allow her to do both. The system did not allow her to look after her ailing mother and still be at work. The system didn't give her the option of working from home. They probably said, you know what? This is it. If you're not able to come into the office 9 to 5, we are not able to accommodate you. And so for me, when I read such things on the internet, then it does remind me that it's everywhere. It cuts across the globe, and it makes me see that yes, that there's a problem. And as organizations and as thought leaders in the industry, then we must pause and ask ourselves, what can we do to change this and to change the way the system is designed? Looking at the state of work in 2025, what really has changed and what hasn't? So we still do have dual career households, but we have the same old structures. So we have households where there's the man and the woman, or two people rather, or two partners in a home, and they are expected to still have their careers. They still are chasing their careers, and careers which are demanding, not just careers or jobs, but they are demanding jobs. And at the same time, then the old structures are expected to be there, or where the man would work and the woman would stay at home. And so that doesn't work anymore. Right now, everybody needs to sort of go to work. Standards of living are on the rise. So we no longer have that luxury of staying at home. And so dual career holds exist, same old structures are still there. We do have single parents across the globe, across the world. We have caregiving pressures, as I mentioned earlier, and we do have employees who are taking care of their aging parents. We have a lot of burnout and mental health crisis. We look around, and when you look at in the workplace, and I know the organizations represented here will attest to this, we do see that people are experiencing burnout, and the mental health crisis in terms of depression and anxiety has been seen as well. So then there's also the always on culture. And what do I mean by this? I mean that organizations have the expectation that people will work after hours, they will have their phone on. As a CEO, and I am probably working for a startup, I expect that when I call my employees at 7 p.m., because it's urgent for me, that they will pick up. And so we've designed this always on culture, which continues to be a challenge in our organizations. And then when we look at just equity gaps also that penalize caregivers, and what I mean by this is, if I am, let's say, a young mom, I have, let's say, a 2-year-old child. We know that between the ages of 1 and 5, children will catch the flu often. They may fall ill here and there before they can actually, stand on their feet and really develop their immune system. And so as a young mom, sometimes you are in and out of the hospital. I did experience this when I was raising my son when he was younger. And I was constantly, sometimes in hospitals, just going to the emergency sometimes and all that. And so one of the things that I find is, you look around and there's women who are really good at what they do. They are great leaders, but they will not get promoted, because when people sit on the boardroom table, they will assess it depending on, has this person been present? Do they always come to work? Why do they always call in sick? They don't assess them based off results or based off what could be the current situation with them when it comes to life. And so when we do speak about inclusion versus humanity, because this is something that we keep talking about, we've learned to talk about diversity, we've learned to talk about inclusion, and it's amazing, yeah, but it's barely enough in terms of getting us there when it comes to restructuring the way organizations are shaped and the way the system is designed. So we really haven't embraced humanity. We've embraced inclusion, but we are not there yet when it comes to humanity. We still will find women who are struggling to get to work. We'll find a single mother, perhaps a single father or a single mother struggling to get through work. And so for me, when I talk about inclusion as a CEO of my own organization, when I talk about inclusion, when I sit on a leadership table, for me, every question I ask, what I ask is, how are we treating these people when life happens? How do we treat them when life happens? How do I treat that mother when the child is sick? How do I treat that lady who loses their spouse, or that man who loses their spouse? How do I treat them when life happens? That's what inclusion actually is. It's not just on paper. It's not just so that we can say we are being inclusive. It's really, how do we treat people when life happens? I'll go over to what coaching has revealed for me as a career coach and as a leadership coach. And so through coaching, I've mentioned before that what I see every day is that people are leaving jobs, aren't really leaving jobs. They are leaving structures that don't see them. that's what's happening in the current situation. And so I was thinking about this topic before I spoke today, and I did realize that there is a way that we can rethink how work is structured. I thought critical about what some of the things that we can do or develop as organizations and as thought leaders to ensure that we are putting people first. And one of them is flexibility without guilt. So being able to work around life and not the other way around. Most of the times we bring life into work, and it's supposed to be, work around life, not the other way around. And so when you give people flexibility, if you're the leader, if you're a decision maker, if you are a CEO of an organization, when you give people flexibility, then guilt should not be part of it. And I should be able to take leave or my vacation without necessarily feeling guilty. I should be able to say I'm not able to come in for the next 2 days because I'm taking care of my mental health and not feel guilty. And so when we offer flexibility, when we let that person who's taking care of their aging parent, when we let them go home earlier at 4 p.m. because they need to get their parent to an appointment, then there shouldn't be no guilt that comes with it. We should be able to provide flexibility without guilt. And then the other thing is support without stigma, being able to recognize that caregiving, mental health, and are actually personal realities, and all the personal realities about life. And why I mentioned stigma is because one of the reasons why an employee will not come and say, I am struggling with my mental health, I am anxious, I am probably, I feel like I'm sinking into depression, I do need help, is because of the stigma that comes with it. As an employee, people start to talk. People start to whisper about what's going on, especially if you are coming from an area across the globe that's not really embraced mental health. I know that there's some places where mental health has been fully embraced. I'm currently working in Canada, and I came here to do my MBA, and it's been really insightful in terms of the way mental health has been embraced in this particular society, and to see that really people, mental health is no longer a stigma for me is very, very refreshing. I am a CEO and founder of a company or an organization that is for Africa. I built Kuza for Africa. I built it because I know that there's talent in Africa, and I know that what we need to do is to change our mindset and really just go in with our deep talent, because I believe that the African continent is so talented. They are like the most talented people. And so if we just change and have that shift of mindset, then things do change. So when it comes to the stigma bit, then my call is usually to these organizations. How can we support our employees without stigma? How can we just recognize that these are day-to-day things that happen in life and be able to offer that support that is needed? And just creating leadership that sees people and not just performance. One of the things that we keep saying when in my organization, one of the things that we say is that as you lead, you will realize that you don't always show up every day at 100%. And it's okay to sometimes show up at 20%. I have shown up sometimes at 20%. And that's fine, and that's okay. We need to embrace that leadership, is about being able to lead, being able to deliver. It's not always just about the numbers. How much have we sold today? What's the revenue? And so we can rethink that way as organizations. And I think it's that time when we ask the tough questions. Are our systems allowing people to thrive? Are we losing our best employees to burnout or rigid structures? And how then might we redesign these roles and timelines and expectations as we sit as HR professionals, as we sit as HR leaders in our organization? I think those are the questions that for me would be very critical to ask ourselves, that if our systems are actually allowing people to thrive, and why are we losing employees? Why exactly are they leaving? Is it that we've not designed systems that can embrace them and for them to feel valued? So those are some of the questions that we should ask. I am almost coming to the end of my presentation today, but when I thought about the human reset, I also thought about what we can do to take action. I thought about building workplaces that don't make people choose. And I said this because this is very personal to me. As I said, I want, as a CEO and founder, to build a workplace that is this way, where people don't have to choose. I hope that we can take action as thought leaders and as leaders of organizations to lead with empathy, to design work that allows flexibility, to also coach with humanity. When people walk into my coaching room sometimes, and I love that also I do have a psychology background, sometimes it does go into that direction where they will come and it's more of them speaking and saying, this is where I am stuck. And so it allows me to actually balance it off, because when you are looking at people with empathy and putting yourself into their shoes, then you coach better, you mentor better, and you lead better. And then we just need to let life happen, because life will always happen. Work will not stop. And we need to also just let work thrive, even as life is happening. One of the things that we must then remember is that people are not resources. They are the reason that these organizations exist. And that was my time. I will pause there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Absolutely fantastic talk. And I wonder whether you've answered it perfectly whilst you were summing everything up then. But my main one question really was, how can we embrace humanity in the workplace then? What would be the one or two things that you would point to or advise people to do as easy first steps?
Thank you, Matt. For me, it would be to go to the drawing board in terms of speaking to the people. I find that in organizations, we don't listen as much. We set structures and we set systems, but we don't quite go to the people. We don't, and we'll do surveys. We'll ask, okay, here's an anonymous survey. Can you fill this in? That's the norm. But we don't do the deep connection with people. And when you deeply connect with employees, you get to hear them differently. And also just having leaders who understand really the humanity aspect. I think it begins with the leadership. If we have proper leadership, then that person will sit with an employee and want to hear them out in terms of where they're stuck. Also, creating spaces that don't make people feel like they will lose their jobs if they don't show up a certain way. And I think that's the biggest challenge. Sometimes employees will show up a certain way because they're showing up strong, but they're showing up strong because they are scared, or they don't know, what if they say I have a mental health issue and I lose my job. So those are some of the steps in terms of just creating the leadership that allows people to lead with humanity, and ultimately just going back to the drawing board to speak to the people.